Welcome into another edition of The Current Report, our weekly roundup of what's happening in the world of digital media. I'm your host, Chris Brooklier. The advertising world has descended onto New York for Advertising Week, tackling topics like the future of TV, brand building in today's day and age, and of course, generative AI. Now, Gen AI is something Andy Littlewood spends a lot of time thinking about as Chief Product Officer for Worldwide. Andy has over 20 years of agency experience from the first industry shifts into digital into the tech-powered present, which is where I started my conversation with him. Pleased to be joined by Andy here at Advertising Week. How's it going so far the first couple hours?
Oh, hi, Chris. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I think it's fantastic so far. I mean, the event is very busy, as we can see from the lines outside. And even though Jersey Transit held me and some others up this morning, it seems like a lot of people made it here. So,
all right. Well, glad you're here. Can we talk about what seismic shifts that you're seeing within the industry? Is there anything in particular that you're really recognizing or paying attention to?
I mean, there are undoubtedly seismic shifts right now, right? I think that's kind of undebatable. You know, we're seeing probably the largest amount of change, both from a consumer perspective, but also from a technology perspective that we've seen for, probably 10 or more years, right? As we see Gen AI come through and influence the landscape, as we've seen, COVID globally affect consumer behavior, and I think off the back of that really impact how brands go to market in a significant way. So definitely those for me are the seismic shifts. I think where that ends up, what we believe at certainly is that it's we've kind of been going through this age of digital, right? In the last few years, we've been thinking about digital skills and how we can build digital brands. And I think now we're kind of transitioning into what we would call the age of intelligence. And it's really about moving beyond that and understanding, how your brand works for people, the efficacy of that brand, how that brand lives in consumers' minds, and really how you take it to market now in a landscape that's increasingly algorithmic, and how you take it to market in the right way for that. So that's where we see it.
All right. The age of intelligence, is that all about AI?
I think it's about what you do when there is AI, right? So it's the age of intelligence for me is about what brands, marketers and agencies should be doing right now as a result of the advent of AI. Because, essentially I think we're at the doorstep of AI being involved in more and more things in marketing and advertising. And what that means is it's going to be making a lot of calls and a lot of decisions on our behalf. So if we aren't intelligent about that and about how we're essentially deploying and feeding that AI, then I think that's where we can potentially go wrong.
The mixture of human with computer. We've all seen, these last couple of years at all of these advertising festivals, everyone brings up AI, right? It's kind of everywhere, right? It's clearly the buzzword. Are we moving into a spot where there's more specificity in terms of how to use AI, or like where it's part of your strategy rather than it just being like a buzzword?
It's definitely a buzzword, right? We can't shy away from that. But I think there's substance there as well. And actually, I think we're much further along with AI than maybe the perception is. Our belief is that AI is in everything, right? So, it changes everything. And I think we've already started to see that in our business. We've already started to use it broad scale. We have all of our people globally empowered to use AI in their everyday work. So it's there. Like it's, and beyond buzzword is now being used in producing outputs and as part of day-to-day processes and is, just a matter of fact in what we're doing. So I think that's the surprising thing about it. Some of the previous buzzword technologies didn't get past that stage, right? And didn't actually get used to any great scale. I think that's where AI is actually different. It's being used at scale already.
Wow. Okay. So you've got over 20 years of agency experience, right? AI wasn't as big of a deal 20 years ago. But obviously the agency world has changed a lot in 2 decades. Can you tell me about what you think the role of an agency is now and like where brands will get value from agencies like yours?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed unbelievably, right? So I started in the agency game in 2000, so I'm dating myself there. I'm fairly old. And, in those days, I worked in media planning and buying, and print advertising was still fairly large, and a lot of it was really about traditional media. And then we saw the advent of digital through the early 2000s, right? So I kind of lived through that age. In terms of where we are now, and I think it's true now as it was then, that the primary value in the agency is really the expertise of the media landscape and everything associated with the media landscape that they can bring to clients. And I think how that's shifted is that as the media landscapes become more technology enabled and technology focused, the media agency has really been the expert of those technologies. And along with that, the data, the analytics, the insights that are produced by those technologies. And I think that has been probably the biggest shift and where clients see more and more value now. So I when I think about what we did when I started in 2000 and what the agency offered, planning and buying, to now what we offer, it's much more of a holistic media service that includes technology and data and analytics services alongside that, and even moving into traditional areas that weren't part of the media agency, and things like content generation and insights. So I think you get a much broader envelope from the media agency now that reflects what the media landscape is.
But obviously technology means data. You're really steeped in all of the data. The way that brands build themselves is obviously different than it was in the past. How do brands use data to build themselves?
You're asking some very great questions today, I have to say, Chris. That's a good one. You said this earlier. AI is an overused word. I think data is overused and a misused word. Data is an incredibly broad thing, right? And can mean all sorts of different things. It can be large scale big data, which we've talked about in the past in our industry. It can be insights data. It can be small data from consumer panels. So I think the first step is really understanding the nuance that's there, right? And understanding, okay, well, it's not just one thing, data. And as a broad thing, it's not going to help us build brands. But what within that is truly useful, right? What is truly informative, and how can we take almost a parsimonious approach to the things in the data landscape that will really build the brand, right? And build it in the right way. And I think that's the key, right? Is kind of organizing the signal from all the noise that's out there and making sure that you're using the right subsets of data, types of data, methods of data that really help your brand.
Wow. Okay. Well, last question for you is, if there's anything, there might not be anything, but is there anything that really keeps you up at night, or that you're thinking about, a lot, as when we're just talking about the job or the market or anything, the broader industry?
Anything that keeps me up at night. I mean, I think in general, lots of stuff keeps me up at night. We're in an incredibly fast-paced moment for the industry, right? The rate of change is unbelievable right now. I think we've probably gone through a fairly dangerous period for our industry where we became a little bit too focused on the complications of the industry and the complexities, maybe overly focused on digital metrics and lower funnel metrics with that. And as a result, we've seen that it maybe didn't deliver the growth that everyone was expecting. So now we're at this point where we're going to continue to move quickly, and we really need to properly understand what's going to drive that future growth. And I think it is on us all to kind of become more holistic in our thinking, to think more broadly about marketing and advertising impacts across a whole range of dimensions and time scales. And I think that generally that's what keeps me up at night, right? Thinking about that. How can we continue to drive the growth and help marketers achieve what they want to achieve?
Gotcha. Some weighty topics.
It's quite, yeah. I often fall asleep after thinking about it for a while.
Hopefully you're getting enough sleep. All right, Andy. It was good talking with you.
All right, Chris. Thank you. Cheers.
Next, we're capping off this episode with one last thing. With less than a month to Election Day, Vice President Kamala Harris is making a new wave media blitz. Sure, the presidential nominee went on CBS's 60 Minutes for a traditional sit-down interview, but more surprising is her joining the Call Her Daddy and All the Smoke podcasts. Call Her Daddy is a powerhouse, as the #2 podcast in the world and #1 podcast for women from 18 to 24. And All the Smoke features former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, where Harris said she thought marijuana should be fully legalized. Her appearance on podcasts like these is a recognition of the power of the audio channel, and a good way to connect with potential voters who would likely not watch 60 Minutes. In a digital media environment, it's another way to tap key voting blocks in a closely fought election. And that's it for this edition of The Current Report. For a deeper dive on all these stories plus more, check out thecurrent.com. And of course, please like and subscribe on YouTube, plus leave us a review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen. And if you want to hear more from The Current, listen to The Current Podcast, where we interview some of marketing's biggest leaders about their keystone career moments and where the industry is going next. We'll see you next week.